Cordelia Gaffar. I'm so excited to be talking with you today. How are you? It's so good to see you again.
I'm doing well. It's great to see you too. This will be a fun conversation.
It is. It is. And just to give the audience just a little taste of what we're going to be talking about, you are known as the ultimate joy goddess, normalizing great sex.
Yes.
Before we hit record, I had to say, okay, that's right, right? She's like, yeah, that's right. I'm like, okay, just want to make sure. I love it. Who doesn't want more great sex?
I don't know who that person is, but they need to listen to this conversation.
Right, exactly. That is so awesome. So before we dive into that conversation, how did you get to where you are today? Because we all have a story, and I really like to make sure that people, get a good idea of who you are, because through our stories, we help other people learn and grow.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for having me on your show.
Of course.
How did I get to where I am now? Once upon a time, I realized that in order for me to be the best me, it required deep self-nurturing. And I didn't really know what that was. This is before self-care was cool, right? And let's see, I had a toddler and a baby, and I was working in corporate America as I guess at that time I was still just like a senior accountant. I hadn't really gotten to the position that I wanted. And I just had a meltdown in the bathroom one day, and I was like, what would really make me feel nurtured in this moment? And so I built upon that practice over a period of years. And when I finally got the position that I wanted, I guess that was about 3 years later as a CFO for a small IT company. I found out I was pregnant with my third child, and I had had a couple of miscarriages and stuff. And I said, you know what? I can always come back and do this, but taking care of my body and being present with my children, this is the only time I have to do that.
Yes.
And so that was the beginning of the choosing me, you know, because we go and we invest a lot of money in our education and a lot of, quality time and networking to get to get that career. And I just realized that that's not what's truly matters. That's not what's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes that climb, we're doing that climb, we're doing the climb, doing the climb, and you get there and you're like, oh, it's like anticlimactic,
It really
right?
was. Yeah, yeah. And so I traded that in for a different career. So for the next 19 years, I chose to homeschool my children. And in that choice, right, I learned all of these things about myself that that got me to now be the ultimate joy goddess. So after having 6 children, I'm just going to fast forward through my life.
You have 6 children.
I have 6 children. I have 4 daughters and two
I didn't
sons.
I didn't realize that, because we've had
Yeah.
conversations before, but that just never came up.
Yeah, I don't, because that's not part of my resume. Like I'm one of the
Yeah.
moms that it's like, I'm a mom, but I don't have to like show how much of a mom I am. So, you know what I mean? Um, but after having my sixth child, I decided to write a book. And in that writing of that book, it was called A Guide How to Get Started with Workout Around My Day. And that was simply because so many of the homeschooling moms that I had interacted with over the years were overwhelmed and woe is me all the time and, running after the kids. And they were just like, how come you're so cool, calm, and poised, and you have a smile on your face and you got all those kids? And I was like, oh, you just blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, you need to put that in a book. So I did. And I started doing workshops for moms. And so my second book that came out, because doing those workshops, people had questions. So it's called Workout Around My Day, the only health guide that moms need. And so it has how to create self-nurturing practices and recipes, to make food delicious and nutritious and not time consuming to make, and stuff like that. And along the way, I had children in travel soccer and all the things. So I studied, I got certified in sports nutrition for my kids, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And, but
That's
from,
dedicated mom. You're kind of like an overachiever like me, huh?
I think we do have that in common. I think that's what resonates between us so much, right? It's like,
Yeah.
um, and the sports part, right? So like for fitness, I'm not going to say I get bored easily, but I like to have a lot of choices. So I, worked toward my CPT with NASM, and I found out about eccentrics because one of my kids got an injury. So I started working towards, so it's like all these different modalities over the years I learned how to do. And so I have a ridiculous amount of certifications, and, but all focusing on total well-being. And so after being married for 20 years, I recently got a divorce. And the thing that I had not addressed was my sexual well-being, which I was always aware, like, because it's kind of infused. I'm a Muslim. And so like in Islam, they say like half your deen or half your religion is having a healthy marriage, right? And so and it's part of that spiritual connection with your spouse is a recommendation to have intercourse 4 times a week, right? And so many Muslim women are like, are you kidding me? Like, when would I have time to do that? And so I was always on the hunt on how to do that,
Okay.
even though we didn't get along. I thought, well, and sometimes, when you're not getting along, you're not even sexually attracted to your spouse, right?
Right. That's
So,
right.
that mining my own joy within, right? That self-nurturing practice helped me to have more compassion for myself and sometimes him. And so like, instead of me 100% of the time overriding, uh, I don't really want to have sex with him today kind of thing, it became more of a, do I require having sex? Yes. And if I do, what would I need to do to get myself there and be present, right? What dynamics and environment do I need to change in my home, right? So even though I was married and we didn't get along all of the time, I found a way to enjoy sex anyway.
Okay.
And but after getting divorced, I was like, okay. And I got a whole lot of trauma around that. I got a lot of sexual trauma from being married to someone that I didn't get along with most of the time and had to like mental gymnastics myself into having sex. So so I said, well, I need to address this. And that's why I enrolled in the Institute for Authentic Tibetan Tantra, and I'm studying that now. And I think not that it would have saved my marriage. My marriage was what it was. It was a great learning, great opportunity, and we co-parent very well now. Um, but if I can save somebody else's marriage, because
Right.
everyone is like, oh, we're married, so we don't really have sex, or we kind of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of societal norms that shouldn't be. And simultaneously, we've got a lot of mental health issues, and they're related. If you're in an unhealthy, if your total well-being is not taken care of, that's like your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, your mental, and your sexual, which is, I would say, the same as spiritual well-being, is not being taken care of, then you're not whole. And you're gonna be off balance all of the time. And there's no amount of Prozac or therapy sessions that are going to help you with that. You need to just you know uh, come to an understanding that good sexual well-being and relationship with your spouse is what makes you a whole person.
So how do people get, because it sounds like what you were saying is like there's an imbalance there.
Mm-hmm.
What can you advise to help people to bring that back into balance?
Yeah, well, this is one word I don't use when it comes to relationships. I use the word harmony and seasons, right?
Instead
Because
of balance.
yes, instead
Okay.
of
Got it.
balance.
Got it.
So I'll tell you, there are two fun ways, right? So one thing I talk about is what your diet says about your sex life, right?
Hmm.
So do you
Interesting.
yeah, like do you grab crackers or do you take the time to um make home, like the what are they called? Like the protein balls, right? And is that your go-to snack, right? Or do you just grab whatever? The same way you approach your nutrition is the same way most people approach sex. I actually know this to be fact because that's a workshop that I do. So
Okay. Can you dive into that a little bit more? Because
yes.
you're like piquing my interest. I'm like, okay. How is that related?
hmm So you know that you're going to be hungry at some point during the day, right?
Right.
And you realize that that you want to have something to eat, but taking that extra step and thought process of I need something that's high quality that will give me that boost of energy, like even energy, not just like a caffeine high, right? Or just to make my stomach stop making noise, but what can I have ready and prepared for that period of time that I know that I'm going to be hungry and I may not have, the luxury of time to go and like get a real, have something really decent to eat. So if you have that forethought and you always have those protein balls available, you'll know that whatever it is for your body, maybe you need one, maybe you need two, maybe you need three, you'll be like, okay, I got that on lock. Same thing with sex, right? There are times that we want to have sex, right? But we may be like, oh, I'm too tired. Oh, what if he's not interested? Or something like this. The too tired will already be taken care of, right? It'll already be addressed if you're staying up on your nutrition during the day because you've already thought about the amount of energy that your day will require, right? And the whether or not he's interested, that is again just like the thought process you go into and for creating those protein balls, right? It would be keeping the lines of intimacy open throughout the day in whichever way aligns most for your relationship.
So are you talking touching, being playful? Like my husband and I both work from home. I'm upstairs, he's on the main level of the house. And, every now and then we'll pass by and we'll just give each other a little kiss, or just, is that what you're talking about? Like throughout the day, just keeping that connection with one another?
I love that question. Yes, because let's define what is intimacy. It's not always touch. It depends, intimacy can be touch if that's your love language.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Intimacy is keeping I would say more like a spiritual connection and alignment. So it could be just, let's say, for couples that don't work from home, in the same house, um, just texting, hey, babe, I was just thinking about you. Or maybe an emoji that you guys have created together, and just sending that, and he will know that you're thinking about him, right? So it's like you're having that connection and alignment all throughout the day. And, for I was just about saying, and if you don't have your cycle on, right? But like that's kind of not an issue for me anymore. But
Me too.
but but for
Thank you.
those, you know.
Sayonara.
But if are able to,
Right.
you can create time for that. And another form of intimacy is, again, like people do meal planning, have sex planning. while you're making your schedule, right? When are we going to have sex this week? Right. So that is another, form of intimacy, just scheduling it in.
So let's talk about that just for a second, because for some people that may be, well, we shouldn't have to, right? Or it ought to just take place naturally. Because when you said that, I was just like, ooh, but then I was like, we're so busy. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
So
you meal plan, sex plan. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So what if there is any way? Because that was my first, when you said that, that was my first thought. So I'm guessing that there's going to be people that are like, okay, shouldn't have to do that, whatever. And I hate using that word should, because, but it's part of our vocabulary. What would you say to somebody that has some sort of resistance about that?
Yes. Another amazing question. So this is how resentment is created. All the assumptions of what is supposed to be in a relationship over a period of time, up into and including, well, we'll be spontaneous with that. We'll be spontaneous with sex, right? And so I would say consider creating an agreement around what your sex life is. And consider what other places that you always have disagreements about, where you could create agreements, right? So um let's say you're frustrated that he doesn't help out with the cleaning if you're the one who does the cooking, or vice versa. He gets upset because you don't clean when he cooks, right? Um,
I
and
would
if you
just love to have
create,
somebody to cook for me.
right? And if you create an agreement that, whenever you cook, I'll clean, right? Then you're already living in a world of commitment and agreements. So anything else to mitigate any form of discontent, this is an opportunity to create agreements around. And in this busy world, the most important way around that is to schedule,
Yeah.
so just to summarize it, because I think I used a lot of words and may have lost some people. Create an agreement around what spontaneous looks like.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah. I had, during COVID, when we were all suddenly stuck in the house. And at the time, my son was home and the dishes became a problem. And I started to feel that resentment toward my husband because he wasn't helping out. So we created that agreement, and we still have it to this day, that I load the dishwasher up, he unloads it. And I've given him that, and I'll be like, hey, just ran the dishwasher. Oh, okay. And he's the type of person that jumps up, does it right then. As soon as I ask him to do it, like, he'll do it right then. That's made such a world of difference in my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on me, Cordelia.
Mm-hmm.
That was on me. I don't ask.
Great point.
I learned that I need to ask for help, and I don't ask for help.
Yeah.
So it's also about like learning about how you communicate. And instead, I would just get irritated because he wasn't taking the trash out. Well, ask him to do it. Just
Yeah.
ask. That's all I got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point about not asking. And some of the women I talk to, they just don't, you know, they don't ask for the sex to be different. Like I was talking to a few women, and they've said things like, well, I don't like the certain positions that we always do, but he seems to like it. So I just, I'm like, whatever. How about having a conversation about that? It's like,
Yeah.
by the way, can we, explore different positions? Just ask.
Well, and I think there's got to be that safety there too. And if you have that safety with your partner, then there's no reason why you can't speak up, because it's safe. It's a safe environment. where nobody's going to get upset at you, and geez, if it, it goes back to, and I think that's really the basis of this conversation, treating sex just like like you're talking about normalizing it. It's just another part of our relationship.
Yeah.
And if you're not taking the trash out, is no different than, let's try a different position because, spice it up.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a good point about safety. And it's like it doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't mean
Yeah.
like I had an outside lover or I was looking at porn. It just means like I just want to try something new. It's like we've been married for 20 years and we've been doing the same 10 positions. Can we use some toys, like let's try
Yeah.
something different. Yeah. Let's research it together. What other positions are there, What toys are there?
Well, and by doing that, you're going to get a little bit closer. You're taking that intimacy to a different level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that people would be surprised how the others would be more open to that. If there's that safety there, you've got to have that safety.
Yeah.
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 So what other things are you doing that you want to share with the audience? Because we're getting close to the end of our time together. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah. I work with people one-on-one, and this year I've actually started a group for you called For Your Ultimate Joy. And it is specifically for married couples to normalize having great sex. So, just connect with me. I always say just email me, right? And you feel free to tell me your life story because that happens. And it's hello@cordeliagaffar.com, and let me know if you're interested in the individual coaching or the group coaching. Now, when I say group, I like my groups intimate, so it would be like 5 couples. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
And what does that look like? Because I know what group coaching is like. Is it no different than a group coaching scenario where you're just talking and and giving your ideas and suggestions and that kind of thing?
So the group coaching works in this way. We meet twice a month, but quarterly we'll meet in person, right? And even though their couples signed up, everyone has an opportunity to meet with me one-on-one. Because
Okay.
sometimes you don't know how to say what you want to say, right? And sometimes you need that private space too. And I recognize that doing things in person, there's like a whole different flavor and vibe with that. So I think it's very important to have those quarterly in-person meetings. Um, yeah, and then, on a regular basis, you can subscribe to the Free to Be show because I'll be having those conversations for the broad education about what it is that I'm doing. And so people can feel free to subscribe to that and my YouTube channel. Yep.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure all of that is in the show notes as well. Cordelia, such a great pleasure to have this conversation with you. Love this conversation. I know that people are going to get so much benefit out of it. And it's a conversation that needs to be talked about,
It does.
most
Thank you,
importantly.
Sandee.
Thank you. And we got to do lunch soon because we're practically neighbors. So
Yes, we do.
we need to make that happen.
It's
All
happening.
right. It's happening. All right. Great to see you today. Take care.
Bye for now.